Hey, Arash, on Saturday when I saw the email come out, it's funny, and we don't know each other all of that well, but instantly I thought of you when I saw the email, Randy Ambrosie to step down as CFL Commissioner, and I just wondered, I wonder what's going through Arash's mind right now as he's seeing this email the same time as me.
Heck with
Are
that,
you
he broke the
surprised?
story.
I know, but okay, but has this been a long time coming? Did this just happen like within the past few days, or how long have you been keeping this a secret?
I mean, I wasn't keeping it a secret, I'll tell you that much. I got a tip on Saturday early afternoon from somebody that I trust and said, you should look into this. It sounds like he's out. And I'm like, what do you mean he's out? Like, it's a month before Grey Cup, not even. How could this be? And then I started calling around, a little inside baseball just on how this stuff works. And probably the first guys, like 8 to 10 people I called, didn't answer the phone. And that's when the spidey senses went up that, oh man, something is going on here. And then I started calling around kind of that second tier that would know people involved with the governors. And it sounded like I was onto something and onto the right track. But ultimately, it wasn't until I was able to get confirmation from two different people at the governor's table from two different teams who are not connected at all, was I able to go with it. And this effectively came down to the old regime of the governors and owners just having enough. And at that point, Randy kind of realized, okay, I don't really have the support that I need to move forward anymore, because they weren't going to give him a contract extension. That's what this conversation was about, was an extension for Ambrosie to remain as the commissioner beyond this tenure. And when he realized he didn't have that support, it all unfolded the way it did.
Can you confirm, like, there's reports that it was a 5-4 decision by the board, and does the board...
That was my report.
Yes. And is it natural for the board to meet, like, at this point in the season to make that determination? Like, was this a regularly scheduled meeting?
Yeah, they meet throughout the season. They meet at Grey Cup. It always depends on kind of what's going on, what's happening. I would say, and I don't know Dave specifically on this one, I would suspect when it comes to an extension conversation, that's going to reach the board level. I don't know when that board meeting was specifically, but the future of the commissioner of the Canadian Football League has to go through the Board of Governors. So whether or not this was one of those situations where X number of months out, X number of weeks before Grey Cup to have clarity, whether that's a thing or if this was hastily put together, I'm not sure. I'm not sure if this had to do with something else and then this was brought up. I'm not quite sure on the mechanics of that part of it.
So we're chatting with Arash Madani here on the All News Sports Cage about Randy Ambrosie and no longer being the commissioner of the CFL past this Grey Cup. And from what you've reported and then what I read on shady sites on the internet and everybody just making stuff up, is one of the loudest voices at the table that may have been against Randy, is it Tannenbaum from Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment, that they weren't happy with the direction the way the league was going or not getting what they needed? Is there some truth to that?
Well, if you put into a Twitter search Larry Tannenbaum or a Google search Larry Tannenbaum and Randy Ambrosie, he's gone on the record, not of late, but in the past, expressing his displeasure for the direction and leadership of the league. I think it effectively came down to this. There have been many people at the governor table who have felt that way. And it really took off. Like it had kind of been simmering and murmuring for a little bit. But once 2020 unfolded in the debacle in which it did, that's when things got really testy at the governor's table. And amidst all this, you couldn't do much because if you remember, first Ambrosie put in an ownership group in Montreal that lasted a little over 5 minutes, give or take. before they finally found Pierre-Karl Pelado. There was the debacle in BC after David Braley's death, where it took a while before they finally found Amar Doman, and they got a superstar there. Then came the Edmonton situation, where they're in so much debt at the community level, they decided to go towards ownership. So until you could really get 9 quote-unquote stable organizations to really move forward, this thing was in flux. My understanding of it, guys, was this. This was old ownership versus new. That along the way, look, Randy probably had the support in BC of Amar Doman because he put him in there. Had the support in Montreal of Pierre-Karl Pelado because he put him in there. Obviously, Larry Thompson in Edmonton, that has just happened. Those 3 are pretty much slam dunks that would be in support of Ambrosie. I would suspect, if you look around the league, Toronto, Hamilton, Winnipeg didn't have much time for him. So where the other 3 fit in, was Sask in support of Ambrosie or not? I'm not sure. Was Ottawa in support of Ambrosie or not? I'm not sure. But I would suspect that the 3 new owners were part of the yes vote, and the 3 I mentioned, Toronto, Hamilton, Winnipeg, unequivocally were against.
So when you've got a board that is divided, right, and this decision is now made, and Randy Ambrosie is going to step down, obviously you now have to come together to find someone to take that position. How do they do that, or what are they looking for, or do they even know?
Yeah, Dave, it's a good question. Amidst all this, there is now a change in Toronto, don't forget, too, with the sale of MLSE. So where does that kind of fit into the equation here? And what does the CFL want to be? I think that's really the question that needs answering first. The other is, time is of essence. We are, 2 months away from 2025. The television deal, which is a big revenue generator for each team, effectively pays the players' salaries. The TV deal, or the broadcast deal, I should call it, because TV sounds archaic. The broadcast deal is up in 27. So these are 2 very important years coming up for the Canadian Football League. And the focuses, if you really think back over the last few years, they've been about the global program. They've been about East Coast expansion, which completely blew up. The priorities were almost fully out of whack. We are less than 4 years away from flag football being an Olympic sport. The NFL has gone all in on flag. Flag is going to be the future of football because parents don't want their kids playing collision sports as much as they did a generation or 2 or 3 ago. So there are some major directional changes that the league has to take moving forward with its next commissioner. And at some point, regardless of who it is, and Dave, you make a really good point here, fundamentally, the governors have to be aligned not only in who they pick, but in the direction in which they're going to go. Because for too long, the governors have just been about individual interests and having control. And so long as that continues, this league is not going to progress where it can and where it needs to. So it's not just spinning its tires.
Yeah, I'd have to say, when they got into all that global stuff, you kind of lost me. I'm like, give that job to a Canadian or an American. Like you're making token spots for token people, and if they're that good, they'll find their way onto a roster. They just will. Somebody will scout them. That everybody was losing their mind over the stat thing last year. I get it. I don't know. People were so mad. We still had product on the field.
These are basic things. These are basic things. They sign, like, in a new era where gambling is now kind of taking over professional sports. They signed a partnership deal with a book that was not regulated in Ontario, where a third of the franchises of the league exist. You're trying to get people to get in on the gambling thing. The reason why the stats matter is because prop bets and live betting are a big part of everyday existence. If you want to push fantasy, how are you going to do that? for 2 years, all we heard about was Genius Sports. I'm trying to figure out the genius part because I've seen the sports side of it. I mean, it's just been one debacle after another, and all we hear is the beginning of new beginnings. They need an actual reset. They need a refresh, and they need somebody in there who's got direction and a plan and an idea of what kind of matters in 2025 and beyond.
All right, let's talk.
Oh yeah. Okay. I'm just going to say the name that's out there because he's running basketball league. Mike Moriali, former Hamilton Ticat player, young, smart, knows business. If you can market basketball in a non-traditional basketball nation, kind of like we are, and I know we've had NBA teams for a long time, but minor league basketball, if you can market that and grow that, imagine what you could do with the CFL. So if he does end up being one of the guys that they do, or maybe you got to look somewhere else, said you need somebody that knows how to from somewhere from Vegas. They're a promoter, they're an event person, they're a show person, maybe not a sports background, but somebody that can expand on what we have, make it bigger. But Dave, I get it. Let's get to the games this weekend. We're going to quote you from a few weeks ago in a couple of minutes, but let's start. Ottawa and Toronto. We've already come to the surmise that Toronto's just playing really good football at the moment. Ottawa, too banged up. The Argos, if let's say we had stats, you're Sean Lemon. Are we putting our money on the Argos to win this game on Saturday?
I see what you did there. Copycat, pro sports is a copycat existence, right? So I think if you play this game 10 times, Toronto wins 9.5 of them. Like not even 9. The one thing the only thing that gives me a tiny bit of pause is I think back to the East Final last year where Chad Kelly threw, 67,000 interceptions in that game? Yeah. And why was that? It was because Montreal brought a whole ton of pressure and a bunch of exotic looks, and they continued to mix up their blitzing all over the field, and Chad started seeing ghosts. I have to believe that the Red Blacks are going to maybe not duplicate that game plan, but I think Ottawa is going to come out and do the exact same. Try and hit Chad Kelly early, try and bring pressure on Chad Kelly early, try and get him off his spot, try and get some of those old wounds to come back. Is it going to work? I doubt it. But that is to me, the pathway in which Ottawa has a chance to win is that. Because when you talk to people around the league about the Red Blacks offense, they'll tell you if you shut them down the first quarter, that offense goes away. So this is how the Red Blacks have to go about it if they have any shot, any hope of winning on Saturday.
See, this weekend I was thinking to myself, somebody told me that Ottawa wasn't going to win another game this year. And then, I don't know, maybe a big freak storm came up or something. Isn't that what happens in the CFL these days?
That's right. That's right.
How important is this game to Chad Kelly? Like, if he doesn't perform, is there a chance this is the last time we see him in the CFL?
Oh, no. And the reason why, forget everything else, is there aren't 3 quarterbacks better than him, let alone 9. Like it's the ultimate supply and demand existence. But I would say this, if the Argos don't win, you go from Grey Cup winners in 22 to East finalists in 23 to East semifinalists in 24. Again, I don't see it happening, but ... In addition, guys, I'm told John Murphy is persona non grata in Toronto these days. Like, he hasn't been seen around BMO Field in a while. Murphy's effectively, I don't know what his official title is, he's effectively the assistant GM. Vince Magri was the assistant GM. He went at the end of training camp to join the Buffalo Bills in their pro scouting department. That entire Argos front office, they're also without a president. Keith Pelly has come in at MLSE, blown out Bill Manning. I think regardless of what happens on Saturday, it's an altogether new front office in Toronto. I can't see Ryan Dinwiddie being out at all. Matter of fact, he's the one who's kind of kept this thing together through Cam Dukes and all the BS. But I would suspect that there are major changes afoot in Toronto, regardless if they lose on Saturday or win the Grey Cup. There's still a lot that has to be sorted out there.
Okay, 5 or 6 weeks ago on the Sports Cage, you said you didn't think that the Saskatchewan Roughriders could win the Grey Cup because they hadn't beaten a good team. If they beat BC on Saturday with Vernon Adams Jr., would that qualify in your mind as a good team? Now, if Winnipeg is the bar, but to do that, are you still feeling that same way, or have you seen enough out of the Riders? Any progression there?
They're the hottest team in the CFL. I don't even think there's a debate about that. They're playing. Look, the name of the game is by mid-late September, get healthy, then get hot. And that's exactly what the Riders have done. And they're coming in with a bunch of momentum. And I tell you, if Nathan Rourke was starting on Saturday, I'd say this was going to be damn near walkover for the Riders. I think Vernon Adams gives you actually a little bit of pause here. I know this is a Saskatchewan show, fellas, but here's my question. I'm going to flip it on you, Maz, for both of you. If BC comes on the road and wins on Saturday, who is the Lions starting quarterback week 1 next year? And where does that leave Nathan Rourke? That's what I'm saying. Is Nathan Rourke the starting quarterback then in Edmonton? Is he the starting quarterback in Ottawa? Is he the starting quarterback in Montreal? Because can you really go with and sell Nathan Rourke this offseason in British Columbia after what you've seen the last few months? I don't know. I think that is, to me, that's the most intriguing thing that Saturday is going to provide us.
Well, I think that seeing how stubborn they were after VA got healthy to be like, no, it's Nathan, and VA is just biding time, pumping guys up on the sidelines, that I think regardless, they've hitched their wagon to that, and they'll probably go down with the ship being Nathan Rourke. So, yeah, it'll be interesting. We had said earlier in the show, I would feel a whole lot better if we were facing a Nathan Rourke BC Lions team, just like you said. The VA thing scares me a little bit because we had Lapo on in the first hour, and he just talked about what VA brings to that offense that Nathan doesn't: stretching the field, explosiveness, big playability, and McInnes being the leading receiver and just always being in the right spot to get the ball. In that Saskatchewan zone, which we play a lot of, which other teams, when we have been taken advantage of, it's the zone that we take advantage of because we don't play any man.
Right. No, it's going to be interesting. I think regardless of what happens, I think if you look at it as Montreal versus Toronto or Montreal versus Ottawa, if you look at it as Winnipeg versus Sask or Winnipeg versus BC, to me, the most intriguing game of the playoffs, not necessarily the Grey Cup, but of these 2 weekends, is the one at your place on Saturday.
All right, I think we're up against it for time. Colson's waving his arms, going crazy. Real quick, let's wrap on this. Does Mike McCarthy of the Dallas Cowboys survive the season with the debacle that they seem to manage? Because, I mean, Dak Prescott's going nowhere. They just signed him. CeeDee Lamb's going nowhere. Something's got to give. Does Mike McCarthy keep his job till the end of the season with the Dallas Cowboys?
I mean, I think so, only because who are you going to promote from within? Mike Zimmer, who still wants to operate with an overhead projector? I don't think Belichick's coming in mid-season to take over that train wreck. So like, what do you really do? Are you really going to Brian Schottenheimer as your head coach? I mean, I just don't know what your better option is internally, and I don't know who externally wants to touch that thing.
Can I get a quick 40-second answer? I love the way you cover baseball, Arash. You know that. Does the World Series end tonight with Shohei Ohtani with one shoulder and Aaron Judge forgetting how to hit a baseball?
Yeah, I think so. And I'll just tell you this. Freddie Freeman has made all kinds of baseball history, not just with home runs in the first 3 games of the World Series. Fellas, he has driven in as many runs in the first 3 games as the New York Yankees have as a team.
Mhm.
The last player to do that in the World Series was Lou Gehrig in 1928.
Oof.
That's how historic a run this week has been for Freddie
Okay.
Freeman.
Well, a lot of us didn't realize that Freddie Freeman was Canadian until a few days ago, because what pops up on Twitter and he starts talking about his mom and his dad and being from Ontario or whatever. I think there's a whole new crop of people going, we're huge Freddie Freeman fans and we love the LA Dodgers. So if it happens tonight and he gets crowned World Series MVP, it'll be very fitting because he's deserved it. Arash, we got to go. We've got to take a break. When we come back after 5,